Resource conservation districts have the privilege of working directly with private landowners. With over 20 million acres of privately grazed land in California, we work very closely with ranchers and have witnessed the multiple benefits and values provided by their land.
My brothers and I are fourth generations of this ranch since 1854. We've been able to demonstrate good land stewardship for the last 150 years. We're proud to be part of California's agriculture, and we're proud to be able to continue operating this cow-calf operation. It's a tough business. No 2 years are the same, so we continually adjust to whatever Mother Nature brings us from year to year.
We're a family-run farming and ranching operation, and we're a multi-generational organization. There's a lot of culture and history in the farming and ranching business in California, and it's probably one of the best places in the world that a guy could want to do this kind of thing. We do it because we love it. It's in our blood. We're trying to be progressive in the industries that we work in. We're trying to be good caretakers and stewards of the land and the environment that we work in. And we try to tie everything together, from producing the high quality beef that we produce for our customers and clients, and then doing it in an environmentally friendly manner that sustains not only the ranches but the livestock and the wildlife on the ranches, and also the families that work on these ranches. We've never really done it for the money or the glory. I think that's probably the same for all ranchers in the state. We're trying to do the right thing. We work closely with our beef clients and customers. That everybody has the same goal and the same idea in mind. They want to have their beef products that are healthy, that are natural. They know where they've been raised. They know how the animals have been treated. They know how the land's been taken care of during the course of raising those animals. And it just works well for everybody.
Okay, my family's had the ranch here since 1918. Since that time, the growth has been just unbelievably strong. We've got a golf course on our north border. We've got ranchettes on 5 acres on our eastern border. We've got a freeway on our western border. Behind me is a California tiger salamander breeding pond that the family has decided to put a conservation easement on. And just looking at the pond, it's probably not the prettiest pond in the world. There's no emergent riparian vegetation around, but the tiger salamanders, for ingress, egress, and protection from predation, prefer that. Also, the cattle use it as a drinking water source, and an occasional use by cattle causes a little turbidity in the water, which also acts to protect the tiger salamander. We made a conscious decision that we want to keep the ranch intact as it is. It's been really challenging at times, but it's been a family decision that we would like to stay here, not only to maintain the lifestyle that we've known to grow up with and love, but also to provide the habitat values and open space that's so coveted by our urban neighbors. One of the things we've done for wildlife enhancement, and we've worked closely with the Audubon Society, and we've got 72 nesting boxes for bluebirds here on the ranch. It's all part of the statewide Western Bluebird Recovery Plan. And I take great pride in the fact that the Ohlone Audubon Society rep that monitors the boxes, last year's report called the ranch a virtual bird factory.
I've truly enjoyed working with ranchers all of my career, probably because as a conservationist, I really truly appreciate their long-term view and commitment to conservation. Ranchers are people tied to the land, both as a part of their living, and more importantly, somehow through the very fiber of their being. It is part of their ethic to find ways to sustain the landscape that sustains them. I've learned that if you can show ranchers that you can help them, be it through grazing management or through managing for wildlife, they'll listen and they'll apply good conservation and be very successful at it. California ranchers bring a very important benefit, and that is a beautiful open space that is both a productive landscape and a healthy environment.
Livestock grazing has tremendous benefits to wildlife management and plant management. Here at Sunol Park, we manage it as rangeland in partnership with private ranchers who live in the vicinity. It allows them to maintain a profitable business and allows us to get a lot of our land management needs met. Additional benefits from livestock grazing include managing for endangered species. It's important to recognize that a lot of our management decisions for managing these lands is based on good science. We have multiple ponds here that can also serve as breeding habitat for California red-legged frog, California tiger salamander, and many other common species. Livestock grazing supports a tremendous array of wildlife, including the California ground squirrel. The California ground squirrel is a keystone species which supplies habitat underground for hibernation for amphibians and other insects. It supplies a prey base for raptors, birds of prey, rattlesnakes, and their larger carnivores like coyotes and bobcats. We're in the central region of the largest concentration of golden eagles nesting in the world. And the reason for that nesting population is because the landscape is managed to promote the prey-based California ground squirrels. Without livestock grazing, we would rapidly lose our ground squirrel population, and we would also lose the associated amphibian populations and the predator populations that rely on the ground squirrel as the base engineer for this landscape. Livestock grazing removes a lot of the non-native annual grasses and promotes biodiversity of wildflowers, forbs, and other native plants. There's a number of ponds that we manage for livestock grazing as a water source for livestock, but they also serve a tremendous and important water source for amphibians, reptiles, and mammals that come to those ponds. Without the maintenance of a livestock grazing program and the needs to maintain those ponds, some of those ponds would have been lost. And in fact, livestock grazing maintains an open water character of these ponds. We've recognized through our research that if you exclude ponds from livestock grazing, the vegetation gets too dense and you lose a lot of these species that rely on that open water. We've been working with UC Berkeley on some grassland studies for the last 7 years, and what they've shown is that the diversity of plants and animals are more closely associated with grazed, managed grasslands than they are with unmanaged grasslands.
In terms of importance to birds, it turns out that most of the birds under the largest threat in North America are birds that use grasslands. Specifically in the Central Valley, we happen to be perhaps the most important area in the whole continent for wintering raptors. These grasslands are almost without exception private land. These birds are using areas that are not national wildlife refuges or preserves. They are working ranch land, private land. It's a pretty simple equation. If we don't have a viable ranching community, a viable ranching business, then we're going to lose this grassland. If we lose the grassland, we're going to lose one of the continent's most important raptor areas.
Defenders of Wildlife cares very much about rangelands and the ranchers who live on those lands, because that open space benefits all of us, including California's declining and imperiled wildlife. One thing we've come to realize is that keeping cows out on certain landscapes, such as vernal pool landscapes, is of great benefit. These cows mimic the natural grazing patterns of the large elk herds that used to roam through the Central Valley. We don't have these elk herds any longer, therefore we need the cows to be out there to keep the non-native species down and allow the native plants to thrive, thereby resulting in healthy vernal pool landscapes. Defenders of Wildlife has come to realize that partnerships with ranchers is really important. It's not always easy for an environmental group to partner with a rancher. Sometimes we have mistrust and preconceived ideas. But after talking with these folks, I've come to realize that we share a love of the landscape.
We at the Sierra Nevada Conservancy appreciate the value of working landscapes to the region. They're valuable for a variety of ways. They're not only valuable from an economic standpoint, but certainly from an environmental standpoint, a social and cultural standpoint. When we look at this region and we look at the lands that are still productive in private ownership, we see how important they are in so many communities up and down the Sierra Nevada. We look at areas where lands have been under stewardship for generations that are really some of our most fabulous resource lands and some of the parts of the community that if they were to disappear, it would be really a devastating loss to the community. We have established as one of our primary objectives the preservation of working landscapes.
As a regional director for the Fish and Wildlife Services, I care deeply about wildlife conservation. What I'm also learning to understand is how important it is to have partnerships with people that own land and working landscapes that have to make a living off that land. What we're learning to do is trust and respect each other and do conservation on the ground for wildlife. Without partnerships, there's no way we can conserve wildlife into the future for future generations.
The California Rangeland Conservation Coalition is a prime example of people and partnerships working together. With the increase of urban development and pressures, it's important for us to increase our understanding of the important role these ranches play in the environmental, economic, cultural, and social benefits they provide.